Hey everyone, and Tony here with a review of two movies that I saw at the Sinister movie theater at Potsdamer Platz. The first one being the motion capture animated movie Tarzan, starring Kellan Lutz and Spencer Locke, and the second one being Dallas Buyers Club. Now, let's move on to the first review, which is that of Tarzan. Now, I have something to admit. I kind of had a crush on Tarzan ever since I was a kid. But my first experience with him was with Disney's 1999 animated movie Tarzan, of course. I didn't really read the book until I was like 9 years old, and that was when I was visiting Hong Kong with my family. And I started to get a better understanding of how dark and how adventurous Edgar Rice Burroughs' icon really is, and has spawned a lot of movies, especially with Johnny Weissmuller and my personal favorite, Mike Henry. And of course, I also like the animated movie, well, from 1999, and its spin-off, Disney's The Legend of Tarzan. And yeah, he pretty much has found a special place in my heart. And that's pretty much all I can say because, yeah, I still like him to this very day. And I could see why he's become an icon to American culture in general, especially with his famous Tarzan yell. So, yeah, thoughts out of the way. I pretty much had a crush on him. I kind of still do. And yeah, I thought some of the movie adaptations that starred the legendary Jungle Man were pretty good. Some were mediocre or even crap, like the 1981 Tarzan of the Apes movie with Miles O'Keefe and Bo Derek. Yeah, that was quite crappy, but there were some very awesome ones, like the 1984 Christopher Lambert Tarzan, which was absolutely one of the best ones I've seen since it was able to base a lot of its material on the original Tarzan of the Apes, such as, Kala's death, Kala being killed by a native, and everything else in between. And also Tarzan's torn pasts, or which sides he chooses, whether it's the human side or the ape side. I think that movie was able to take me seriously. I mean, no doubt about it. I do like the Cy Weintraub movies with Mike Henry. I thought they were fun, though not really the best things I've seen, but my heart actually goes to the 1999 Disney Tarzan movie, and also the TV series, which is spun off from Legend of Tarzan, though honestly, it could have gone longer. It only ended after like 39 episodes, plus a really bad sequel, which is in the form of Tarzan and Jane, which was nothing but a clip show, and another mediocre sequel called Tarzan 2 from, well, Disney. So yeah, that's pretty much it with my experience of Tarzan. But going into this movie, I've heard a lot of flack given to this movie. People would even go out of their way in saying that the graphics were terrible, the story made no sense, the characters were hollow. They've listed down every flaw that made this Tarzan adaptation really bad. And I do agree with some of them, but I wouldn't really go as far as to say that the graphics were horrible, but more on that later. So, yeah, story-wise, it's kind of ridiculous. And it's basically all over the place. I mean, we first have Tarzan's first experience with the apes, but this doesn't really take from the original source material of how Tarzan was being raised by the apes. No, the movie actually starts him out while he's still a very young boy of about 5, 6, 7 years old, and he's still with his parents, still alive and well. Whereas with the original novel, his parents ended up getting killed by Kerchak. Yeah, that's how much the opening scene deviated from the original novel. And another thing I seem to notice that deviated from the original novel was the definition of Tarzan. As I've read in the original novel, Tarzan means white skin in Mangani, which is the language that the apes spoke. But here in this movie, it means ape who has no fur. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. Oh my god, you really have to be kidding me. Yeah, that was just. Wow. Wow. What the heck did I just hear when JJ said that? It made me scratch my head, as in, it's just unbelievably stupid. And the third problem is, like I said, it's so all over the place. I mean, you have this family of explorers and who ended up getting killed by a plane accident, all because after that they excavated some rare artifact. But not to mention, way, way, way in the beginning of the film, there's this whole talk of this meteor that comes down to Earth during the time of the dinosaurs. And I'm like, what? This isn't the Tarzan I really grew up with. But yeah, overall, the story was really all over the place. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. And the way I feel, it kind of feels like it's ripping off from James Cameron's Avatar. And what I do also seem to notice is that there are so many deviations from the original novel. Of course, the past few adaptations had a lot of deviations, no doubt about that. But this one, yeah, it's pretty much up there. So, yeah, the story was just, well, quite a mess. But it basically compensates for being unintentionally hilarious, which I'll get to later as well. Now, animation, like I've mentioned, the animation doesn't really seem that bad. Oh, sure, it's not that fantastic, but it could have been a lot better in other places, like the character designs of the characters' faces. Most of them are like, or let's face it, almost all of them are quite one note and are almost incapable of expressing other emotions. And they kind of feel stiff, for God's sake. So, yeah. Yeah, the animation is the only decent part of this movie. And it's really not on par with, like, say, Pixar or DreamWorks. It's not really on par, but at least it's quite decent. Now, the characters, well, I only have one character that I like, and that's Tarzan, duh. Jane, well, she first starts off in her younger self as this lovesick teenage girl who has to deal with an annoying older brother and pompous older sis. So there's nothing unique about her, but when she grows up, she becomes this stereotypical action girl, and she's not that strong physically. She doesn't really fight back. She may seem tough, but that's pretty much it. She tries to act tough. And the villain of the movie, Clayton, he is just one note. He was absolutely just so one note and so stereotypical. He's one of those stereotypically greedy villains, and those are basically the type of villains that I absolutely despise with a passion. This Clayton fellow is so one note. He's a lot more one note than the Clayton in the 1999 movie. Well, he's not that better, but still, he's just as generic as all get out. I mean, yeah, he's just as generic. He's just one of those generic, greedy villains that I can't really seem to root for, and his only motivation is just money. Money, 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 money. And Jane's father isn't any better as well. But Tarzan is, well, he's okay. He's not that great, but he doesn't have that much of an impact on me, unlike the other incarnations, mostly the 1999 Disney version. Yeah, I mean, he only looks good. That's pretty much it. Sure, he's a strong fighter, but we don't really see him fight that much. Oh, and going back, the climax between Tarzan and Clayton, it wasn't really that climactic at all. It was anticlimactic as all get out. The fight scene could have been badass. It could have been a lot more tense. It could have been all of that. But what happens? I know I'm going to spoil this bit, but the whole thing about Clayton being dead because of that plane crash after some gorillas threw some rocks, or excuse me, Tarzan threw a huge rock, that just felt anticlimactic. And yeah, that's pretty. Oh, and another note. How can a gunshot make Kala still live? I mean, it was a very fatal gunshot. She could have died. But oops, she's still alive. That gunshot was so fatal. And just wow. Wow. It just shocks me. And one more thing. How was Clayton able to notice that this wild man, Tarzan, is actually J.J. Clayton all grown up? How is he supposed to know that? I mean, we're supposed to have some proof, but it just comes off right off the bat. So yeah, going to Tarzan, he's the only okay character, along with the gorillas, basically Tarzan's 3 gorilla friends, and his gorilla mother, Kala. But still, Tarzan is the only okay thing in this movie. He does have some funny lines, like this whole me Tarzan, you Jane thing. It just came up as so unintentionally hilarious. Oh my god, I was practically laughing my ass off just by hearing Tarzan saying me Tarzan, you Jane, and just hearing him scream it out loud. It was just it was just so hilarious. I mean, sure, it's supposed to be iconic, but still, it just comes off as unintentionally hilarious. This is one of those aspects that I mean when I say unintentionally hilarious. It's that line alone. It was just, oh my god, you have to be kidding me. It was just, wow. Wow. But still, even though Tarzan doesn't get to do a lot of fighting, what I usually expect, he's still the only likable character in this film. Now, what about the actors? Okay, say what you will about Kellan Lutz, but here as Tarzan, I thought he was okay. It's not the greatest performance I've seen, nor is it the worst. He is only okay. And I don't really plan to see Legend of Hercules anytime soon. I've already watched the Black Critic Guy's review on that and also that of Jeremy Jan's review of that movie. So I don't plan to watch that movie. I've heard a lot of terrible things about it. People say that Kellan Lutz was horrible in that movie. But hearing him voice act as Tarzan, it's not that bad really. It's okay, but it's definitely not the best that I've ever heard of. Because let's face it, he doesn't really have a lot to say, only grunts and his famous Tarzan yell, which I'll have to admit was okay. It's not that impactful like Johnny Weissmuller or even that of Brian Blessed's Tarzan yell in the 1999 movie. And yeah, it's only okay. But Spencer Locke as Jane. Oh my god. Now, Spencer Locke is an actress that I've had an experience of watching ever since I was a kid. I first watched her in Phil of the Future as Candida, and also in Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide as Bitsy. She basically specializes in a lot of bitchy, nasty young women. Well, mostly on a G-rated level, and mostly set around either middle school or high school. Hearing her as Jane, I thought she was one note, I thought she was quite flat, and there are times that she can't really seem to emote. It doesn't sound all that dynamic. It just sounds flat. It just sounds so wooden. And I'm really concerned for her because this is an actress that has a lot of potential, but here I really feel sorry for her. I mean, she was kind of working with a laughable script. I really feel sorry for her. This is an actress that has so much potential, and hearing her sounding quite bored and tired was just painful for me. She's still so young. She deserves better material. She honestly does. She honestly deserves better material. Sure, she had a good start in Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide and Phil of the Future. But those were just as these tween bitches. And it's nice for Miss Locke to voice a heroine for once, but hearing her as Jane was just quite painful. Because like I said, she has so much potential, but she sounds so wooden and so one note. Basically, she deserves better. I honestly hope that she'll get herself in a lot of better projects in the near future. I want to see more of her acting chops because I'm sure that she has so much potential as an actress, but here it's just wasted and she deserves a lot better. The voice actor for the main villain of the movie sounds bored and totally wooden. I don't even know his name, but I'll check it out right now. Just hang on a second. I have his. I'll look in IMDb right now, and Clayton. Trevor St. John as Clayton. Oh my god. He sounded so wooden. In fact, a lot of the performances in this animated movie were quite wooden. And I could really tell that not a lot of these actors and actresses have worked on voice acting. They could have hired better, or let's say more professional voice actors. They could have hired Jennifer Hale to voice Jane. They could have hired, let's say, Nolan North to voice Tarzan, or maybe even Michael T. Weiss. They could have hired him. They could have hired, like, Tate Donovan to voice the villain. They could have hired better actors, but here they just sound so wooden. And lastly, the music. It's just too much. The epic music at times feels so long and overdrawn. And there is this one piece of music in Tarzan and Jane's love montage that felt so out of place. Paradise by Coldplay. Now that felt so out of place in this movie. And that just saddens me. So yeah, the music is extremely forgettable. And 2 thumbs down to that song by Coldplay. And the writing, yeah, it could have been a lot more polished, but as it is, there are moments where it's so unintentionally hilarious. So overall, Tarzan 2013, as I'd like to call it, is definitely such a flawed movie. And even if I've dished out all the flaws, I kind of like it. But it's for the wrong reasons. And it's because it is so unintentionally hilarious. I found myself laughing, most notably at the whole screaming of me Tarzan, you Jane thing. And I will admit, it does have some decent action with Tarzan's battle against Two-Blot. But other than that, this is just one of those films that if you have nothing better to do, you might as well just watch it for the laughs and nothing more. And if it does come out on DVD, please don't spend your hard-earned money on just buying the DVD. You might as well wait until this thing is streamed in order for you to watch it. But as it is, if you really want to have a few yucks along the way, then this movie might as well be for you. But if you're a hardcore Tarzan fan, or if you really like the 1999 movie, which I'm sure that a lot of people has made a lot of comparisons to, you might as well avoid this movie at all costs. The only thing that it has going for it is that it's unintentionally hilarious, despite its convoluted story. And with that, I have to give this a 1 out of 5. The only thing that saves it is that it's unintentionally hilarious and that the animation is okay. Other than that, the story is so contrived. The characters, for the most part, are only one note. The villain is so pathetic. And everything else in this movie kind of makes my intelligence go lower and lower by the second. Look, I am done with this movie. So, all that's left now is that you just have to tune in for my next review. Excuse me, I don't even know how to say review properly because of this. So stay tuned to my next review, Dallas Buyers Club. And, oh boy, I have a lot of positive things to say about that movie. So until then, see you later.